Okay, so imagine this, a self-driving car, cruising down a street,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden a kid runs out into the road.
Oh,
Now the
yes.
car has got
Yeah.
to make a decision, like right there in the moment.
Right.
Does it swerve to avoid the child and risk the passenger,
Right.
or stay on course and potentially, cause a real tragedy?
Yeah.
It's a horrifying scenario to even think about, but
It's a tough one.
this is the kind of ethical dilemma we're seeing more and more as AI becomes, a part of everyday life.
Yeah, definitely.
So can we actually create machines that are able to make the right choice when they're faced with these impossible situations? I mean, that's the big question.
That is the question.
We're going to be diving into today as we explore the world of machine ethics.
It's a fascinating area.
And we've got a really great article from Katie Nuggets to help us navigate this.
Yeah, Katie,
A really great resource for all things data science and AI.
for sure. One of the best.
It's a good one. This thought experiment that we were just talking about,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just theoretical anymore.
Oh, yeah, at all.
This is becoming more and more real
Yeah.
as AI gets, more sophisticated.
As AI gets better, that's when it gets real.
And what's really interesting about this Katie Nuggets article
Yeah.
is that it's not shying away from these complexities.
Uh-huh.
It dives into what machine ethics means, like in actual practice.
Yeah. That's the important part.
Why it's so crucial that we get this right,
Absolutely.
and why it's actually a lot more challenging
Oh, yeah.
than just programming a set of rules,
Right.
Like we can't just tell the machine, if this, then that.
Like a simple flow chart.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
One of the core ideas that this article highlights
Mm-hmm.
is that machine ethics
Mm-hmm.
is all about making sure that machines are acting in alignment with human values,
In line with what we think.
in line with what we think,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And on the surface, it sounds pretty straightforward.
Right. So
But you start peeling back those layers, and it gets real complicated real quick.
it gets complicated real quick. Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Even we as humans,
Right.
we can't even seem to agree on, like a universal set of ethics
Exactly.
for ourselves.
Yeah. Where humans are messy.
Right. Humans are messy.
Yeah.
So how can we expect to define a clear set of values for machines?
That's a good question. It's a challenge.
That's a challenge, right?
Big one.
That's what the article gets at.
Yeah.
Machines, especially, machines that use machine learning,
Right.
they learn from the data that they are fed.
It's how they work.
And that data
Yeah.
reflects all of our human inconsistencies
All our contradictions.
and contradictions.
Yeah. All the messiness.
The messiness, the moral messiness,
The moral messiness. Yeah.
if you will.
I like that.
So essentially,
Yeah.
we're asking these machines
To make sense of.
to make sense of
For ethical
our ethical chaos.
tennis. Exactly.
Yeah. So how do we overcome that? How do we overcome this inherent data dilemma?
I mean, can we even overcome it? Is that even possible?
The article really dives into this challenge.
It does.
If our human decision-making
Yeah.
isn't always consistent or unbiased,
Right.
then how can we expect?
Yeah.
How can we expect the data that we produce,
the data?
which is often the basis for training AI,
Right.
how can we expect that to be any different?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
It all goes back to the data.
That goes back to the data,
Uh-huh.
and that brings us right back to our self-driving car.
There it is. Yeah.
There's no easy answer here.
Nope.
Like we can't just program in
Yep.
some algorithm
You can't just...
that's going to magically solve these ethical dilemmas.
Right. You can't just say, always save the most lives.
Right, like always choose the option that's going to save the most lives.
Yeah.
But then what happens when,
Maybe it happens.
it pits the passenger against a group of pedestrians?
Yeah. What do you do then?
Right.
It's a classic
That's a tough one.
trolley problem.
It is a trolley problem.
Yeah.
You're hitting on a really crucial point here.
I think so.
These moral dilemmas,
Yeah.
they just don't have easy solutions.
Nope.
And the article uses a really interesting case study
Okay.
to illustrate this point.
Uh-huh.
Have you heard of Delphi?
Delphi, I have.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Delphi was this AI chatbot
Uh-huh.
that was developed by the Allen Institute for AI.
I think I read about that.
And they had a really ambitious goal.
Yeah, it was ambitious.
They essentially wanted to create a machine
A machine that could
that could make moral judgment.
make moral judgment.
Like they wanted to create a chatbot that could tell the difference between good and evil.
Yeah, like a moral compass.
A moral compass for AI.
Yeah.
I mean, how did they even approach that?
Oh,
That's wild.
it was an interesting project.
So Delphi showed some initial promise.
It did. Okay.
Like It could handle these straightforward ethical questions.
The simple one.
The easy ones, yeah.
Yeah.
For example,
Mhm.
if you asked it about cheating on an exam,
Right.
it clearly stated that was wrong.
Cheating is wrong.
Okay, yeah. Here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
When they presented Delphi with a scenario
Uh-huh.
where cheating might be necessary to save someone's life,
Oh.
Delphi could actually recognize the nuance
The nuance.
and even suggested
that maybe
that it might be justifiable.
it's justifiable in
That
that
extreme circumstance.
extreme case.
Hold on. So if Delphi could understand that context matters
Uh-huh.
and make a more nuanced judgment,
Yeah.
doesn't that kind of go against the idea that AI can't grasp moral complexity?
That's a good point.
Right. You're right.
Complex.
It is complex.
Right.
It is.
It is?
Yeah, and that's what makes this whole field so interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
So while Delphi could handle,
Uh-huh.
these relatively simple moral dilemmas, simple ones,
It struggled
when things got more real,
when it was confronted
the
with,
messy situations,
yeah, the messier,
the gray area,
more complex scenarios
yeah, the ones without
that we encounter in real life
a clear answer.
where there isn't a clear
Yeah.
right or wrong answer.
Right.
It's like
Aced the quiz, but failed the exam.
it aced the ethics quiz,
Exactly.
but then failed the final exam.
Yeah,
Right?
totally.
So Delphi's limitations
Mm-hmm.
really highlight how difficult it is
Extremely difficult.
to program
You bet.
true ethical
Reasoning
into a machine.
into a machine.
But it also raises an even bigger question.
A bigger question, yeah.
Even if we could program like a perfect ethical code,
Okay. Yeah.
whose ethics would those be?
Whose ethics? Yeah.
Right.
It's the big question.
And this is a question that the article really grapples with.
It does.
You know, we live in a world of
yeah.
such diverse cultures,
And
beliefs, and moral frameworks.
yeah, whose ethics do we pick?
So whose ethics do we prioritize?
And are we even consistent?
And even within those frameworks, are we all that consistent
We're with our own ethics.
with how we apply them?
Right. Exactly.
Right. And the article suggests that this is where we need
Some global.
some kind of global consensus
Doesn't sense.
on ethical standards for AI development.
Standards, yeah.
And they even quote
Oh, of course.
Norbert Wiener,
I like
this
quote.
brilliant mathematician who said,
What do you say?
"We had better be quite sure that the purpose put into the machine is the purpose which we really desire."
Wow. That's
Wow.
pretty powerful.
It's a really powerful quote.
Yeah, it is.
And it really highlights that we can't just blindly develop AI
Right. We can't just.
without first like wrestling
We have to figure out.
with these really profound ethical questions.
Yeah, we have to figure out the ethics first.
Right.
Yeah.
The purpose that we embed
Uh-huh.
in these systems
Needs to be
so carefully considered
thought about
because ultimately they
Wow.
will reflect back on us
and shape
and shape the kind of world that we create.
world we create. Yeah.
So what does this mean for the path forward? How do we make sure
How do we
that we're developing and deploying AI ethically?
ethically?
What are the concrete
Well,
steps?
what can we actually do?
What can we do?
Yeah.
The article points to a few crucial areas
Okay.
we need to focus on,
Uh-huh.
starting with the data itself.
Back to the data.
You mentioned the data dilemma earlier,
I did.
and that's something that
Researchers are
researchers are actively working to address.
trying to solve. Yeah.
So how do we make sure that the data that's used to train AI
Right. How do we make sure?
is actually reflective of the value
values
that we want to see?
Yeah, that's the question.
How do we do that?
Well, one of the key things that the article brings up is making sure that the data is really diverse
Diverse.
and representative.
Yeah. Representative.
Okay.
You know, so if we want AI that's actually making fair decisions for everybody,
Right.
then the data needs to show all the different
The whole spectrum.
experiences and perspectives. Yeah, a whole spectrum.
It can't just be,
A narrow view.
a small slice of the world.
Yeah, you can't have a truly ethical AI if it's only seen a little corner of the world.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's not even just the data itself.
Right.
The article talks about how important transparency is.
Oh, yeah.
Like being upfront about how the AI is trained
Mhm.
and what data they're actually using.
Yeah, being open about it.
And how accountable these organizations
The people making the AI.
developing these AI systems need to be.
Yeah, they've got to be accountable.
Okay, so no more hiding behind the curtain.
Right. No more secret.
Companies need to be transparent about how their AI is making these decisions,
Especially
especially when those decisions have real world consequences for people.
That's right. Consequences for people.
Yeah, exactly. We need to know how these systems work.
Right.
How they're making decisions.
Yeah, and this is something the article really emphasizes.
It does.
The need for clear explanation. Especially in those high-stakes situations.
High stakes, yeah, where it really matters.
But here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
The article argues
So,
that it's not just up to
Get out,
tech
Slippy.
companies
Oh.
to solve this.
it's all of us.
Like, we all have a role to play in shaping
the ethical.
the ethical future of AI.
The future, yeah.
Whoa, hold on. So you're saying that just because it's, a complex technology,
Right.
we shouldn't just leave it to the experts.
We can't just sit back.
It can't just be passive,
You let it happen.
right? We need to be
Informed
and engaged citizens
Wow.
asking questions,
asking questions.
demanding that AI is used for good.
Yeah.
For good. There's a part of the article
Mm-hmm.
that really resonated with me
Okay.
where they talk about this emerging field of AI
What field?
called generative AI.
Generative AI.
I got to admit, I'm both fascinated and kind of terrified by how quickly it's all evolving.
Yeah, it's moving fast.
Could you maybe explain a bit about generative AI
Start.
for our listeners who might not be familiar with it?
Yeah, generative AI, basically.
I've heard about it.
But it's AI that can
I don't really know what it is.
create stuff.
Create stuff. Okay.
Like, it can make text,
Okay.
images,
Yeah.
music, even videos.
Wow.
And it's really realistic.
realistic. Okay.
Like, hard to tell it's not made by a person.
So it's like giving machines
Creativity?
a spark of
What a
creativity.
good way to put it.
The ability to actually generate something new
From what it's learned,
from what it's learned. That's
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
it is pretty amazing.
Okay, that clarifies things a lot.
Good.
But doesn't this just make all those ethical concerns we've been talking about even worse?
I mean, it could.
Think about it like a world where AI can create,
Fake news articles
fake news articles
that you can't even tell are fake.
that you can't even tell are fake.
Yeah.
Or, manipulate videos to make it look like
Someone did something they didn't.
someone said or did something they never actually did.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of scary.
That's pretty unsettling.
It is a little bit, yeah.
So then we need even more ethical guidelines,
Yeah, we
And
should
offers.
rules,
especially around generative AI.
especially for that. Yeah,
It's like we're standing at the edge of a whole new world
it does feel like that.
where the lines between reality and this AI-generated content,
They're blurred.
they're blurred.
Yeah.
It's blurry.
We need guidelines fast.
We need those guidelines, and we need them fast.
Yeah, for sure.
The article talks about this sense of urgency,
Mm-hmm.
and it also highlights another really crucial point,
Okay.
the need for education
Education.
and awareness.
Awareness, yeah.
It's not enough for just a few experts
Right, everyone needs
to be thinking about this stuff.
to know about it.
We need to educate the public
About the good and the bad.
about AI,
Sure.
both the good and the bad,
Yeah, the benefits and the risks.
especially as it becomes more sophisticated
And a bigger part of our lives.
and, more part of our everyday lives. Yeah.
Exactly. We can't be in the dark about this.
We can't be in the dark,
Yeah.
right? We all need to be a part of this conversation.
Everyone.
It's not just a technical issue, it's a societal issue that affects everyone.
Exactly.
We need to make AI
Understandable.
understandable and,
Empower people.
empower people to actually engage with these issues
Yeah, to think about it.
in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
And it's not just about
Understand.
understanding the technology itself,
Right.
but
And
understanding
ourselves. Our values.
biases,
Biases.
and how those might be
reflected in the AI.
reflected in the AI that we're creating.
Right. How we shape the AI.
It's a process of
Of reflection.
self-reflection,
Yeah.
as much as it is about
Technological innovation.
technological innovation.
Right. We got to look at ourselves, too.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's like developing AI is forcing us
To look in the mirror.
to hold a mirror up to ourselves
Yeah.
and ask these really big questions
The big questions.
about what it even means
To be human.
to be human.
Yeah.
What defines us as human beings?
Right. What are our values?
What are the ethical principles that we really want to uphold
in this world with AI?
in a world, where machines are becoming increasingly capable?
Yeah. Are we ready for that?
Right.
It's a good question.
It's a big question.
The answers are
The answers
are going to be easy.
are straightforward.
Also debate,
There's going to be a lot of debate,
compromise.
Yeah. It's messy,
It is
but, that's all part of the process
of building the future.
of building a future where AI is truly
Serving us.
serving humanity,
Yeah.
not the other way around.
Not the other way around. Right.
I appreciate that you're highlighting that point, that
We're not just
We're not just along for the ride here.
passengers.
We have agency in how all of this unfolds.
We have control.
And speaking of different approaches,
Oh, different approaches.
the article talks about how the EU and the US are kind of thinking about AI regulation
Different ways of thinking about it.
in very different ways.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really fascinating.
It is interesting.
The EU has been taking a much more proactive approach.
We're ahead of the game.
They are ahead of the game.
Yeah.
They have the EU AI Act that just recently came into force,
Just came out.
which takes a really
Comprehensive.
very comprehensive approach
Yeah, they're really thinking about it.
to AI regulation.
Trying to get it right.
Could you break down the EU's approach a little bit?
Sure.
I think it would be helpful for our listeners to understand
Okay.
what they're doing,
How it's different.
how it compares to what's happening here in the U.S.
Okay, so the EU AI Act, basically. The EU AI Act basically categorizes AI systems based on how risky they could be.
Okay, so different levels of risk.
Yeah, like minimal risk, limited risk, high risk, or
Or like totally unacceptable.
unacceptable. Yeah, they say just no to those.
Okay, so they're acknowledging that not all AI is created equal.
Right. Some AI is riskier than others.
So the risky stuff needs stricter rules.
Yeah, stricter rules for the risky stuff.
That makes sense.
It's like
Could be.
safety rules
Right.
like for riding a bike.
Versus flying a plane.
Exactly. You need
If something goes wrong,
different rules.
yeah, the stakes are higher.
Right. Way higher.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
The EU is really focused on protecting fundamental rights, making sure AI,
Making sure AI aligns with
European values,
European values.
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
in practice.
They ban some AI systems
Okay.
that they think are just bad.
Like what kinds of systems?
Like social scoring.
oh, yeah,
Systems that exploit people.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Those seem pretty unethical.
Yeah.
So they're just like, nope, not allowed.
Nope, not allowed.
Okay.
And for high-risk AI,
Like in healthcare and stuff?
yeah, like law enforcement, healthcare,
Okay.
they want transparency.
So we can see what's going on.
Yeah. And human oversight.
Humans need to be in the loop.
Yeah, humans got to be involved.
So the EU is taking a strong stance.
Yeah, they are.
What about the U.S.?
So they
It
use,
seems like they're taking a different approach.
it's more about innovation,
Innovation, okay.
but also thinking about ethics.
So encouraging ethical development.
Right, less about strict rules,
Okay.
more about doing the right thing.
More about guidelines and principles.
Yeah, like a Bill of Rights for AI.
The Bill of Rights for AI.
But that's still early stages.
Okay, so it's kind of like regulation versus innovation.
Yeah, you could say that.
The EU wants clear rules,
Mm-hmm.
and the U.S. wants
See what happens.
to let the industry figure it out.
Yeah.
So which approach is going to be more successful?
That's the million-dollar question.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's tough.
It's tough.
Too much regulation could stifle innovation,
Right.
but too little could lead to,
Problems.
ethical issues,
Yeah,
unintended consequences.
exactly. It's a balance.
It's a tough balance to strike.
It really is.
Will be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, to see what happens.
Will one approach become like the global standard?
Right. Will everyone follow one model?
Or will different regions have different approaches?
Different rules for different places.
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Tough to see.
But one thing's for sure,
What's that?
we're going to be talking about AI ethics a lot more.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
These conversations are so important.
They're essential.
And I think it's important to remember
What's that?
that the future of AI isn't set in stone.
We still have a say.
We still have a say.
Yeah, we're shaping it
It's being shaped right now by the choices that we make,
right now.
by the conversations we have and the actions we take.
By what we do.
So as we wrap up our deep dive
Okay.
into the world of machine ethics,
A fascinating world.
it is a fascinating world. I
Yeah.
want to leave our listeners with this thought.
Okay, hit us with it.
What role do you want to play in shaping the future of AI?
That's a good question.
It's a powerful technology. It has incredible potential.
For good, for good.
And bad.
And for bad.
Yeah.
It's up to all of us
To get it right.
to make sure it's used responsibly.
Responsibly. Yeah.
You said it perfectly. The future of AI.
Yeah.
It's not something that's happening to us.
We're making it.
We are creating it together.
Together, stay informed.
Stay engaged.
Stay engaged and stay curious.
Couldn't have said it better myself.